All right, Rich, I'm pumped to have the conversation, to have you on the show today for a couple reasons. Because one, I think a lot of my listeners have a lot to learn from someone like you. I love your business model. I love how you show up in the world as a business owner and as a husband, father. Also, you're one of my coaches. I've worked with you in group coaching. I've gone through a few of your programs. And so I have learned a lot from you, and I chose working with you for a specific reason. It's because not only do I want to learn and have continued to want to learn how to enroll like really quality clients and become a powerful coach myself, but I want to learn from someone who values the things I value, and you're one of those guys. And so just there's so many things I like excited to talk to you about and have you on the show. But just Rich, thanks for taking time out of your day. It really, really means a lot because I know it's super valuable.
Thanks, man. Graham, it's a pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be here. I'm looking forward to see what we can create.
I'm just curious, like, how would you describe how you got into coaching and why you chose coaching? And then maybe within that, how do you define a coach? Because I hear that word thrown around a lot. People ask me, well, what is coaching? Is it consulting? So maybe explain what you do in your own words and why you love it so much.
Okay, a lot of questions in there. Let me see if I can capture it. How did I get into coaching? I left university at 21 years old. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work with people. I was a people person. I traveled around India for a few months on my own. Like when you leave university, you had no idea what to do. Came back. I was talking to my mom and said, I didn't know where to start for a job. She worked at a hospital and said, there's something called human resources. They have an opening. It's to do with people. So I got a job in human resources in a children's hospital. About 7 months later, I quit because it was so boring. All I was doing was paperwork. But I went along to a careers fair whilst I was still working at the hospital to try and enroll people to work at the hospital. There was a talk going on in the background. It was about this thing called teaching. And I thought, oh my God, this sounds amazing. And I became a teacher. And for 15 years, I was a high school teacher. I taught in Africa. I taught in Southeast Asia. I helped to build international schools. I taught in inner city London. And 15 years into my career, I was a deputy head teacher, an assistant principal, as we say in the US. I'm a Londoner by background, but I live in California these days. And I got fired by a new boss. I went to work for a new boss. A week or two later, he got fired, and the new boss arrived and wanted her own team. So last in, first out, I got kicked out. I went off to lick my wounds out in Thailand. And while I was there, I'd already been trained in coaching skills as I was training to be a head teacher. And I started coaching people on a beach. And I thought, wow, this is great. I love this. After 15 years of working with kids and young adults, it was time to work with adults. And I came to the US thinking I would train to be a coach. Went to a workshop about relationships while I was here, met a woman, proposed to her 10 days later. 17 years later, we're still married. And I began my career as a coach. I trained in San Francisco with some of the best coaches on the planet, and that's when my career began as a coach. So that was your first question. That was a little snapshot of my story.
Yeah, that was great.
How do I define a coach? My definition of a coach, I'm making this up in real time, would be someone who is willing to challenge your thinking, someone who's willing to provoke the way that you think the world is this way. This is possible, this is not possible. I can do this, that's not the kind of guy I am. I get to sit down with you and say, who said? Where'd you make that up from? And I get to really challenge the way that you see the world. So I have a track record of helping people do impossible things. That, for me, is what a coach is.
I absolutely love that. And I've been using that language the last couple of years, borrowed from your provoking thinking, because as you put it, and you talk about this in your book, The Prosperous Coach, but not everyone's going to do that. Like very few people in your life, not even your spouse all the time, will provoke your thinking. Like nobody wants to make you mad, or they don't know any better, or they're just clouded in their own mind. But there's this, it seems to me, and maybe you agree, there's this special moment when you have especially a paid coaching relationship where we're like, we're committed to be here. I'm committed to you. You're committed to me. And there's honesty. Like how many people are actually telling you that your thinking is messed up or are asking you hard questions? And one of the things that I think messed with me when I started going through your stuff was I wanted to know, like, well, what do I tell people? Like, what's the framework I should give? And I'm such a content guy, and so much of what you were saying is people can arrive at their own insights. Like if you ask better questions, they can arrive at their own insights. So what do you like, what's your take on that? Like how have you seen, in your words, like the most powerful transformations in your clients be from just setting maybe the table for them to be able to arrive at some of their own insights? Is that a lot of what happens for you? Because I've heard you say like you could jump on a call with a client and if 5 minutes in, they've got the insight they need, you're like, dude, we're done here. And it's like we should end the call. So talk about that.
Yeah, if you listen to my podcast, some of the episodes are 5 minutes long because if I ask the right question, they get their insight. Look, if you're working with really talented, driven, ambitious people who've had a track record of success behind them, they're really good at what they do. They don't need you to be better at what they do than they are. They're often the best at what they can do. What they need is someone to ask different questions. They're asking the wrong questions, otherwise they have the answer by now. So let me ask you a question. Like, what's up in your life right now? What's a challenge you're facing right now? Life, business, personal, professional?
Me? Let's see.
Yeah.
It's a million. Like take a pick. Okay, so one of them for me is in transition in my business in life where I'm taking on new identities of author, keynote speaker, things that I've written articles, but now I'm writing books. I've spoken a bajillion times on webinars or podcasts, but now I'm doing more on stages. And I'm having a bit of a imposter syndrome creep up again for like the millionth time in my life of, well, am I good enough to do what I want to do? I see the people that are world-class at speaking and writing. And so I'm just doing it anyway, but I'm in a season where it's like, I still get mentally stuck of like, I don't know if that keynote's ready. I don't know if I'm ready. And I know you just do it anyway, but there's so much, I want to have the confidence to go in so I can just add a ton of value, but that confidence is like not there all the time. So that's a big challenge I'm struggling with.
Well, let me help you by provoking your thinking.
Let's go.
There are a million people out there telling you that if you have imposter syndrome, you need to work on it. It's something you need to do. There are books about imposter syndrome. I put it to you that if you don't have imposter syndrome, you're not playing big enough.
I would agree.
So what needs to be fixed? You just told me that you're feeling imposter syndrome over here. I'm celebrating you. Good job, man. Sounds like you're doing something that feels a bit scary, a bit intimidating. Good job. What's the problem?
Problem is I don't like how it feels, Rich.
Yeah, but dude, you're not supposed to. So
Yeah.
I fell over the other day and broke my little finger on this hand. And just an awkward fall, landed badly, and I had to have surgery. It was a complex break in this little part of my finger. And the surgeon spent 2 hours working on this tiny complex break. I've got 6 pins and a plate in that tiny part of my little finger.
Wow.
And I've been going back to see the surgeon, and there's I never even knew there's a thing called a hand therapist who's working on my hand, getting the motion back into my hand. And the doctor said to me yesterday, he said, listen, you thought I had to do the hard work when I did the surgery, and boy, it's complex surgery when you operate in a tiny part of the body like that. He said, well, now actually the hard work now begins. You've got to do the hard work. So every day, my finger's off camera, but I'm doing exercises, I'm stretching it, and I'm pushing it so it's really painful. Because he said, if you're not willing to feel the pain, it's going to take years for it to get back. It may never get back, the motion. So you're telling me it's hard? Dude, you can do hard.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like, I mean,
Let me pause you for a second, because I want to, everyone who's listening or watching, I want to tell them what's happening in real time right now. So it's hard for Graham right now because I just coached him and he's trying to be present and lead a podcast. But what just happened, that silence was an insight moment for Graham. He's got it. Like, we're done. I don't need to talk to him about how to build his confidence, what he needs to do on stage, any techniques about how he uses his body and posture and so on. He's got the insight. He understands that he's feeling imposter syndrome. That's actually a good thing. It means he's playing a really big game. He understands that the hard work it means that confidence is a result. It's not a requirement. You don't need it first. And he's there. And then his struggling for words in that moment is what happens when you have an insight moment. There are no words. But he's also trying to host a podcast, so he's trying to think of what do I say next. So I'm creating a little bit of space for him right now, but also modeling for everybody else. When you coach for an insight, rather than coaching for tiny next steps or action steps or commitments, you coach for an insight, everything shifts.
I love that. Now, stepping out of coaching mode for a second, I've loved that about you because one of the things that you've said over and over again in the groups I've been a part of with you is either you said this explicitly or this is what I take away from the sessions are a lot of the insecurity and fears that I can feel as a coach, especially if, let's say, I'm raising my rates and charging more and more and more, is I've got to be, good enough or impress them, or I'm thinking, are they thinking, is this worth the money? So all of those thoughts that we feel, those insecurities and fears, are all about ourselves. Like, there's no way I can actually coach somebody powerfully if I'm obsessed with myself in the moment. And so it's always refreshing to hear you talk about, hey, if you can just be present with them, like not just your phone off, but you're not thinking about yourself. Like I have a friend and a coach, Julia Woods, who says she's a couples coach, but she draws this diagram of when you and your spouse are arguing, there's the conversation you're both having, then there's the conversation you're having in your head about yourself, and she's having in her head about herself, then there's a conversation I'm having about her and her reaction in my head, and likewise, and then there's the conversation, there's like these 4 conversations happening. It's hard to be present as a coach when you're fearful and worrying if you're adding enough value, but ironically, the moment I'm putting words in your mouth, but it's like the moment you stop thinking about yourself and whether you're valuable, you can actually be valuable to the other person, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
There's no irony. It's in the word insecure, insecure. Your attention is on the inside, which is why you get nervous. Do I look right? Do I sound right? Have I got the right credentials? Are they going to believe me? Are they going to trust me? The moment you put your attention on the other person, what do they need? What's really going on for them? What are they not saying? What are they saying that I believe, or what are they saying that I don't believe? When your attention's over there, you don't need to worry. There's a great book called Rookie Smarts, and Rookie Smarts is about the premise that being a rookie is something we're afraid of. And actually, you bring a real gift to any field or industry when you come in with a rookie mindset. Why would you hire me as a coach? Because I know nothing about your field? Well, you're an expert in your field, and you're struggling. So why would you want to hire another expert from your field? You need me because I know nothing about the way that you show up in the world. You need me because I know nothing about your industry. You know me because I'm willing to ask. You need me because I'm willing to ask provocative questions. You need me because I'm willing to ask dumb and obvious questions that no one else around you would dare to ask. That's why you need someone who doesn't have to know any more than you. In fact, it's a gift that I know far less than you.
I've always loved that. I love how you turn that into a strength, because it really, really is. You say that you help people see what they cannot see, and that is a superpower. You said something in your book, The Prosperous Coach, that no one ever pays for coaching, and I think you're sniffing up that tree. We're talking about that now. So, what does that mean to you? And then let's start there. What does that mean to you? No one ever pays for coaching.
When coaches start coaching, they love coaching. They've been coached by somebody else. They've started a coach training program. This thing called coaching seems amazing. Wow, I love coaching. Can I sell coaching? Yeah. What are other people charging for coaching? $50 an hour, $100 an hour? That's what I can charge. At some point, their professional self-esteem begins to grow. Their track record as a coach begins to grow, and they start to sell themselves. Well, it's me. I'm not a generic coach, so I can charge $200 an hour, maybe $300 an hour. Maybe I have a package for $1,000 or $10,000 or $20,000. The way to sell packages at any price is to stop trying to sell coaching and stop trying to sell you. Is to sell the dreams that the client has. And you're not even selling them. Your job is to draw out their dreams. Tell me, what would make your life amazing? If you were to call me in 3 years' time and your life had transformed, what would be happening? What do you want to stop now and forever, for the rest of your life? If you could let go of this, would change your life forever. What are you tolerating right now? What's draining your energy? If we could get rid of that, how would that be for you? You help draw out their dreams, put their dreams out there, and then you ask them, do you want to invest in your dreams? And you can put any number out, and they're going to decide, this is priceless. I'll invest any amount. There are people who spend $100,000, $250,000 on a car. There are people who spend $100,000 on a vacation. There are people who spend millions of dollars on a home because that means a lot to them. There are other people, their friends and colleagues often, who would never spend that much on that thing. They'd spend it on a watch. They'd spend it on a suit. So we get to put it out there. So it's like, the problem is it's like going into a restaurant and a coach shows up like a meek waiter. what would you like to eat? You know what? I'd like a bottle of champagne and that Wagyu steak that's been flown in from Japan. Well, hang on a second, sir. My self-esteem's a bit low today. Are you sure you want to have those things? Hang on a second, miss. Those are really expensive. Are you sure you wouldn't want a bottle of Coke and a hamburger? The waiter says, what would you like? And then they deliver what you would like. As a coach, you show up. You draw out powerful dreams. You show the people what the blocks are in the way. You give them an experience of how you could help them. And then they get to make a choice.
I love that so much. I know my experience of coaching, because I've been a content creator and educator, so one-to-many, been doing that for many years. And when I started to do one-to-one, even years ago, and I did some of that in my previous business and then the business coaching space, tracking the way I show up in one-on-one coaching situations from then till now is markedly different. And so here's like how I would show up for coaching. I would assume you hired me because I'm the expert. You like me, so you like what I know, and you like who I am. That's why you chose to learn it from me. And it sounds very arrogant, but I would bolster myself with those things, and then I would just give them so much information. I would just tell them all the things, and they would write down a ton of notes, and they're, oh, this is so good, this is so good. And then nothing in their life would change, and I would be frustrated, and and they would quit coaching or not re-up, and I'm like, well, I gave you like all the good stuff, you know, like, what do you need from me? What else? What's wrong with you? And it's like going from that years ago to then having some bumps into some successes accidentally, then to learning from you. I think coaching with you was the most helpful coach I've had in terms of how to coach, where it's like, oh my gosh, I've been thinking about it completely wrong. And then fast forward to, let's say, one of my current clients right now. I remember on our first call a couple of months ago, I was just asking some questions, and I must have asked some question that made some sense to him, and he started to just solve his own problem. And I felt like when the session was over, I was like, I don't think I did very much. But he was like, oh my gosh, I now know exactly what I need to do. I'm going to close this thing down. I'm going to, like, he was just off to the races. And it was like that moment of, I didn't deliver less value. I delivered more value by getting out of my own way and not trying to be the expert in the room, but provoke his thinking or just ask a question that connects in a deeper way. So just sort of sharing for those that are going through that coaching journey, what you're saying, Rich, makes total sense, but it feels, at least to someone like me, counterintuitive in the natural.
Yeah, I get that. Look, I'm in the transformation business, not the information business.
Right.
Information costs pennies. It actually costs nothing. Go online for $0. You have access to every resource imaginable. Use AI to get downloads and summaries of books and resources. The information, we're not struggling for a lack of information. Anyone who wants a six-pack stomach and abs of steel, it's not a lack of information that's going to stop them. It's a lack of action. It's a lack of courage to keep going, a determination. So we are held back not by lack of information. And I'm going to challenge and provoke your thinking in this moment, because you've said this to me many times, you're a content creator. I put it to you, you're not a content creator, otherwise you wouldn't be so successful. Everyone's a content creator this day and age. Anyone can create content, grab an iPhone, write a few words, scribble something out on Instagram, use a nice image. You're an idea creator. The reason you have such a following is you share ideas that stimulate and challenge and provoke people's thinking and encourage them to think in new ways. You're an idea creator, Graham, not a content creator. I hate the word content. It's an ambiguous word, which means you can say it in two words. It's the word content, or also the word content. And contentment means being okay. I have a rule in my business with my team. We're not allowed to say, it's okay. If I say, how's that program going? It's okay. How's that thing going behind the scenes? It's okay. No, not good enough. It has to be extraordinary. I don't like the word content. I don't like the word content. You are not a content creator, my friend. You're an idea creator.
I appreciate that. I received that. I definitely received that. One of the things I think is strategic about the way you show up in the world, Rich, with your coaching is, yes, all the things you said, showing up, being present, provoking their thinking, and helping them arrive at the insight, whether it's in 5 minutes or 5 hours, whatever it takes. But one of the things you've taught, and I think is so true, is to create your own intellectual property, your own IP. and whether it's a framework or it's a tool sometimes, or some of these things, which I think are brilliant because it's your own spin on how to do something, but it's put in a way that's not productized is not the right word, but it's unique and custom because it's your way of thinking. And something that Rory Vaden says is that we're all writing verses of the same song, like every book. Like there's not a whole lot of new, but when you create your own thing and give it a name and frame it your own way, it does feel fresh and new. And you strategically, you coach and you say, hey, I have this tool, I have this framework, try this out. Talk a little bit about how you came to start to think about frameworks and IP and how it can be very simple, but how powerful it can be for your clients.
IP takes you from being what I call a prosperous coach to an influential coach. A prosperous coach builds a word of mouth business. I think the mistake that most people make is to go into the content creation business too early, and coaches will spend hours and hours of time, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, you name it, creating memes, articles, stories, sharing other people's stuff. Actually, you can build a very powerful business, one relationship at a time, one conversation at a time. In fact, everything you want is on the other side of an uncomfortable conversation, which is why people don't do it. It's much easier to spend time on Instagram and LinkedIn and think you've spent hours doing things instead of looking someone in the eyes and saying, let's have a conversation. How would you like to be coached by me? How can I support you? So people spend time doing that too early. My book, The Prosperous Coach, is about how to build a word-of-mouth business. Now, I wrote that 10 years ago. The irony of writing a book about how to build a word-of-mouth business is I became pretty widely known in the coaching industry. And now people find me because I've spent 10 years creating ideas, tools, distinctions, and so on online, books, articles, podcasts, videos, you name it. I've been prolific for 10 years. How do you get there? Well, be careful you don't do it too early. But when it's time, the simplest way to start to create IP is look for distinctions. A distinction is when you can separate two ways of seeing things. So the way I like to describe a distinction is I don't have many distinctions around wine. It's either red or white. It has a screw top or a cork, or it's got a beautiful picture on the front of the bottle, and that's when I buy it because I've got no distinction around wine. My friend's wife is a sommelier, and we went to a dinner party at their house once, and she brought out this box with scents in, 100 different scents, and she could identify all the different wines just from smelling the scent.
Wow.
And so she has much more power around wine than I do. So distinctions give you power. So distinction around confidence I mentioned earlier. For most, confidence is a result, not a requirement. You were saying you wanted it first. If only I would have enough confidence. Well, that's not how confidence works. Confidence is a result, not a requirement. There's a distinction. Imposter syndrome. Stop trying to get rid of it. Get good at it. It's a new way of looking at the world. So anytime you have a counterintuitive thought or a distinction, most people think life is this way, but actually it's this way. That's the simplest and easiest way into creating IP. It doesn't have to be a long, complex document.
Yep. Yeah, I know. I love that. That's the secret sauce of what it is. I feel like you distilled that perfectly. What's coming up for me just in that moment, Rich, is how important, like those phrases, confidence is a result, not a requirement. It's such a simple phrase, but sometimes I feel like those things might just come out naturally and you're like, oh my gosh, that's a brilliant idea. But a lot of times it takes some thinking to, this is the idea I want to convey. How can I convey it in a memorable but succinct, profound statement? And I was thinking in real time, I need more space and time. And you say space is where miracles happen. I've never forgotten that line, but I need more time and space just for some of those framework creation ideas, those sentences, because it's like you could sit for an hour in silence and come away with one phrase like that can then be a huge distinction for you and IP for you moving forward. And it's just when we move at the pace of just do the next thing as a business owner.
Let's do it in real time. Time. Tell me a counterintuitive truth that you have. And a counterintuitive truth goes like this. Most people think ... The truth is ...
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've made a living trying to be counterintuitive. So you could pick anything. I would say most people think to make more money, you have to work harder. But the truth is, if you're doing it right, the less you work, the more money you'll make.
Very provocative, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell from the way that you say that you know the truth of that statement. Is it true for everybody in every situation? Not necessarily. There are some people who have vocations, teachers and nurses, who work incredibly hard and will never be paid the money that they should be valued by. But in the world of entrepreneurship that you work, hell yes, that's true. Too many entrepreneurs are working harder and harder. After about 4 hours of work in a day, research shows that we're not productive. But we don't dare stop. We leave the world of being an executive or whatever it was to become an entrepreneur because we seek freedom. And we have no clue that the hardest boss we're ever going to work for is the guy who looks back at us in the mirror every single night.
One of the distinctions that I've arrived at early in my idea creation days was that without an audience, nothing is possible, but with an audience, anything is possible. Because all the people that I was helping build businesses were so focused on the thing they were going to sell. I need a course, I need a community, I need coaching. And it's like, that's what they were excited about. And I've always felt that the best businesses are the ones who know how to build an audience, even if they don't know what to sell yet. Even if there's nothing that they're going to sell, they just always could. It could be a book, it could be coaching, but anyway, that's just a distinction for me where it's like, where are you focusing on? I always focus on the audience, not the thing I'm selling as much. And it's funny how that's been a phrase over and over again that helps people get to center when they're listening to my stuff. Like, oh yeah, that's right, audience building. That's the most important thing. So when you talk about IP, it makes so much sense to me. Some of it I was doing intuitively.
Catch it in real time because you started this premise with like, how do you get there rich? How do you create these clever phrases? You're doing it constantly. You just don't see it because you're not putting enough time and attention on it. Most people try to build a business by selling a product. Actually, the way you build a successful business is you build an audience first. And now you can start to create evidence of this. The Kardashians come to mind. Built an enormous audience. That's why they sell so much. What are they selling? Lipstick and underwear? They've built an audience who will buy anything they sell.
Yep, exactly.
So you're full of IP. You said earlier, I built a living by being counterintuitive. There's IP in that sentence. Most people think that if only you say the right things to the right people at the right time, you'll be successful. Actually, by saying the wrong things, different things, unusual things, challenging the status quo, that's how you become successful.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, no, I believe in it. I just love how, what I was thinking in real time when you were talking about IP is that's always served me well in my businesses, but I want to block off more time and do the work of even creating more IP. Like,
I'm going to challenge you on this one because you just told me. You just told me that you don't become successful by working harder. You do not need to work hard at this. So it's not about blocking out time for it. Look for IP everywhere you go. So I took my community 4PC to Curacao last year. I went to the bathroom during a break, and as I was standing having a pee, a guy went into the cubicle. And I noticed that the frosted glass door was not frosted very well because I could see this guy's naked butt as he sat on the toilet. And that was IP for me. I went back into the room and I told them the story, everybody laughed, and I said, okay, here's some IP in real time. Where in your life do you think nobody can see what's going on and everybody can see? What are you hiding that actually isn't hidden at all? Boom. The toilet paradox, I think I called it. There's IP everywhere, my friend.
Oh, yeah.
Don't try to sit down and work hard at it. You just told me. It's not hard work that's going to get there.
Oh, fair. I'll receive that. All I'm saying is reminds me of how valuable IP is and how if my brain is so focused on just tasks that I think are important in the business, you can miss the superpower, I would say, of just pausing for a moment and thinking about what are some of the distinctions I have and toying with teasing them out and testing them out. I think there is a lot of power, and you're one of those guys that has really good distinctions, provocative phrases, and I think all the masters in their respective areas have those moments of IP, whether it's a phrase or a framework or whatever. And I think it's just so cool because there's unlimited things you could create because the way you see the world is unique. It's the way you see the world.
So the way you get good at anything is by being bad at something. If you want to be good at creating IP, start by creating crappy IP.
Yeah.
The hard work distinction. I mean, we drew it out just now. Let me see. How would I do that in real time? Most people think success comes from hard work. The truth is, success comes from working harder. And what people don't understand is that working harder is not by doing hard work. It's by doing the things that only you can do. It's kind of messy, right? It's not perfect. As I said it, I think I'd probably turn it around and say, most people think you'll be successful by working harder and harder and harder. The truth is, you need to find the hard work that only you could do. There you go, much more powerful way to say it.
Yep.
So look, how did it come? Because I got messy the first time and it got better the second time. Now sit with that one for an hour or two, make a note in your iPhone and come back to it over a couple of weeks and you'll come up with the hard work paradox. And now you're there.
I love it. So one of the things I love, Rich, when you're helping coaches build a coaching business or people come to you and say, I'm not making enough money as a coach or I want to charge higher fees or whatever it is you have this distinction that clients are created, not attracted. And you use the language of enrolling clients. And you touched on it just a second ago that clients are created like one powerful conversation at a time. Can you just, for the people who haven't read the book, The Prosperous Coach, can you just touch on maybe like how your process of how would someone go get their next client or quote unquote find their next client, which is not the right language you use because that's where people think they're getting stuck. And I know a lot of times we're approaching it backwards.
Well, look, there's a distinction, right? A distinction between getting clients and creating clients. I made that distinction up because I wanted to show people that clients come from a powerful conversation. You create them. You enroll them by engaging them in a conversation and giving them an experience of what you do. I came across something online the other day. My son was Googling my name and it came up with some guy who's made a YouTube video criticizing the Prosperous Coach. He says, I can't believe this. These two guys are telling people to give away all their stuff for free and coach people for free. Yeah, I do. I say, there's only two ways to work with me, no cost and really high cost. And I recommend if you're building a coaching practice, start by giving everything away. Because what you need at the beginning of a coaching career, because no one leaves university to become a coach. They have spent years in another job as an entrepreneur, as an executive. They're retiring. They're sold a business. They want to give back. They've been fired. They've had it coaching themselves. They want to do something different and love the idea of coaching. So they come into coaching and they don't know how to make money. So don't try to. Instead, give people so much value that you start hearing again and again and again, oh my God, that was amazing. Oh my God, that was incredible. So your professional self-esteem grows to a place when somebody says, oh my God, that was incredible, you then feel able to look them in the eyes and say, great, would you like to do more of this? Well, how would you like to work together? And then you're at the start. Sell the experience, not the concept. We live in a world where everyone and their mother is a coach. We live in a world where you can get certified as a coach overnight online for free. So barrier to entry is that low. But the barrier to success is really high. That's why most of us don't need to worry about it. You don't need to be an average coach. You want to be an extraordinary coach. Build your professional self-esteem by coaching your ass off, by creating so much value for people, and then build your business by telling people how much it costs to work with you. And the problem with people is they come into coaching and they're needy. They need the money. And when you're needy, it's like client repellent. So if you need money, I always say go and rent out a room in your house on Airbnb. Go and get a job part-time or full-time. Because if you are needy, the clients will feel it.
Yeah, that's so true. It's so powerful. It's funny how you've said something too. You've said let your fee be the no sometimes. Like when you're talking to someone and having a conversation, and even if you're unsure, like if you really want to work with this person, like just have such a confidence in your high fee and like almost act like you don't need them and it actually be like you don't need them. And it's amazing how either that's a good way out of a conversation, like, hey, just he's too expensive, or it actually sometimes could backfire because the more you push them away, like that girl in middle school, like I don't want you, the more they want to work with you. But I think there's something powerful about not needing, and the way you've described it, and I've adopted this too, is with when you're doing these calls and you're coaching them for free, it's not just pitching them coaching. You're actually auditioning them to see if I want to work with you. And you've given me permission to think, I don't need everybody. I want to choose who I want to work with. And even just that mindset shift probably makes me more attractive as a potential coach for them. But I've appreciated that.
It does. I mean, it takes me back to my dating days. I wasn't very good at dating, and I'd go on a date, and maybe she'd say, let's you want to meet up again? And I'd say, yeah, I'm free all next week and all the week after. And she'd say, don't call me, I'll call you, right? There's that neediness that we feel.
Yeah.
It's my co-author's line, needy is creepy. And we really feel it. The trouble is there is not a word in the English language for the opposite of needy. Needlessness, it doesn't really exist. And it's interesting, when you don't have a word that exists, it describes, it points to something that's missing. So when you show up with an audition mindset, it takes me back to a couple of stories. Once, when I was a teacher, we were interviewing someone for a high-level job on the leadership team, and one guy came in at the end of the day. We interviewed a few people. No one felt like a fit. And he came in, his energy was like, he didn't do this, but it felt like he leaned back in his chair, put his feet on the desk and said, okay, what have you got for me? Now, that was the energy that he brought. He was like, I'm clear. I'm bringing something really cool to the table. What are you going to offer me in this job? And we felt it. And we hired him. We wanted him. We felt that. So it's really enrolling when you don't need the person you're talking to. The audition mindset speaks to that. It's like, hey, I'm here to audition you. And you can either say that out loud, or you can bring that energy to the room as a coach. Even if you know that you'd love to have another client because money's a bit tight right now, you still have to show up as if, I need another client. It does not need to be you.
Oh, I like that line. Does not need to be you. And to your point, I've been telling people on calls this year as I've been doing more one-on-one coaching, I tell them straight up, hey, appreciate you reaching out, connecting. From what I can tell, I'm interested in connecting with you and I want to help you and I'll coach them. But I was like, but just so you know, this is not a guarantee that I even want to work with you. I'm trying to figure out if you're creepy or not. Like I've told people that, like, you never know. Some people say really nice things in an email and then you get on a call, you're like, this person's creepy. And it usually makes them laugh, but it kind of shows them, look, we're both here trying to figure out, should we be working together? Because I feel like it's a partnership. And I think you were the person that gave me that permission to think like that.
Nice.
So one thing I love about you, because as a lot of people that listen to this show, I really do believe in what I would call content marketing, in the sense of, like, instead of running ads all the time or being on social media and just pushing, putting out very useful ideas, if we want to call them ideas, stuff that's either videos or articles or a podcast that truly is generous in nature, transformative, that doesn't feel like just a teaser to get someone to buy something, or just, I heard I'm supposed to post content, but it becomes like, I've always viewed my content, my YouTube channels or podcasts, as a resource that I'm adding to. It's my way of giving to the world, knowing that the majority of people will consume the free stuff, never buy anything from me or work with me directly. But I want them to have that experience that, wow, that idea, I can use that. That was transformative, whether it was in the music space originally or now in the business space. You do this better than almost anybody I've seen. I've been on your email list for a few years now. I don't even know, do you blog? Is it daily? What's the cadence? But it almost feels like daily. Sometimes they're very long, in-depth guides. Sometimes they're very Seth Godin, like, here's a sentence. And you're like, whoa, very short. So just talk to me about how that plays in the overall strategy of your business. And I know you like it too. I know you're an idea person, and you said you're prolific, and I would agree. But I think it's both strategic, and I know you do it for a place of love. Maybe just talk about what got you into that, and how do you view that as part of your business?
I think I've always loved provoking people's thinking, and that's what I've tried to do as I've written in my blog and my podcast and my YouTube videos. If you ask about strategy, I've never really had one. I've never really known what to do. When I talk to friends who are marketers, they can't believe that we have an email list as low in numbers as I do and a business as successful as I have. Because what happens I had a marketing expert come and do like a review of my business, and he said, Rich, your business is like you walk into the mall and there's all these beautiful stores with beautiful storefronts, and there's one that's boarded up and it's really hard to get into. If you get into all the others, as soon as you walk in the door, they're like, what can I sell you? What can I sell you? What do you need? You need this. Let me sell you something. You can't even get into your business, but if you get through that boarded up window or door and you get through, all that happens is people are there. How can I serve you? What do you need? Here's some stuff that will give you some value. Let me give you some more value over here. And as he was doing this in real time, he said the metaphor really landed for me. And then he got on my website, and what we discovered in real time is that the sign-up box for my email list, someone on my team had removed it by accident months or even a year earlier. We don't even know how people have been signing up still. They had to work really hard. And it really does describe, I think, because I've worked with lots of marketers who say there are certain ways to do things. I think underneath it all, you have to be you. And being me, the opposite of needy for me is being generous. So yes. I have created tons of resources and ideas and concepts and tools, scorecards, distinctions, and given it all away for free. You can get some of my best stuff for free. If you come and pay me money, you'll get my messiest stuff. You get me raw and real. Here's another counterintuitive thought, right? You think, well, yes. Aren't I going to get your best stuff? No. You get my rawest stuff, but you get my newest thinking in real time. You get me, what comes out later as IP is a tool or a distinction I drew for an individual client in that moment that served them that I can hone over months and then put out into the world as something that looks amazing. But you get my rougher stuff. You pay $100,000 for a one-on-one coaching. I'm there in the mess with you, sharing what's really going on, all my ups and downs and insecurities, my mistakes. Like I don't hide that stuff. Last year was the toughest year of my life, hands down. My 11-year-old at the time, he had a stroke. He's okay now, but it was a 1 in a million thing. Oh. My youngster, he was 9 back then, started having a school refusal, and we found out later he was being bullied, but we didn't know at the time. I spent 5 months running my business from my car in the parking lot of the elementary school. My wife and I after 17 years of marriage, we were putting everything on the table, like, do we even want to be married anymore? The business had ups and downs. It was a really challenging year. Here's what happened. By the end of the year, my oldest son, the neurologist, said it was a 1 in a million thing. He's absolutely fine now. My youngest son, his confidence had come back. That girl who'd been bullying him and moved to another class, super confident these days. My wife and I feel closer than ever. And by the end of the year, the business had made more money than the year before. And what I got out of that one is that, oh my God, it's like I've flown a plane from LA to London. And planes are never on track. They're always going slightly east, slightly west as they're traveling. And I've spent the entire flight worried and nervous and insecure, only to land up at Heathrow Airport perfectly. And so, but I share all that stuff with my clients. So, I'm not afraid to share that now, but my clients got that in real time as I was going through this. I don't hide that stuff.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. Most people wouldn't share that, or that was connected. And you sort of said it is, people say there's a way to do something, of doing it your way. My new book, Rebel, is coming out later this year. And the whole premise is that you find yourself by not following the crowd. Like there's a million ways to do anything. And the best way you could do it is the way that makes sense to you, because you're designed a certain way. It's really hard, even hard. Like if I were to try to copy you, I can learn from you, but it'd be hard to be you. I'm not you, I'm me. But we just are so darn scared a lot of times that we don't feel the freedom to just be us or feel like we have enough value. So I've always appreciated that about the way you show up in business. So like, again, I've gotten value from your coaching, but then I'm watching you as a business owner and saying not many business owners that are in the online space have the guts to not worry about all the marketing trends like you do. I've never felt the pressure, but you're one of the few others that doesn't seem to feel that pressure, and you've gone your own way, and you command more and more respect for say, hey, this is how I think about it, this is how I want to run my business, and I think you give people permission to do business their own way. So I just want, as a long way of saying thank you for how you show up in the world as a business owner, as a husband and father. I choose my coaches carefully. because I don't want to just follow someone that's successful, whatever the metric is that I'm interested in, or does the thing I want to learn more about. But I want to see, how does he treat his wife? How does he take care of his kids? Does he think about life outside of business and work? And you've always integrated those things and shown clearly that you have the similar values. So I respect you for that. And I have gained more wisdom because of the way you show up in those other areas outside of your business. So thank you.
Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Let me finish with a story then. A few years ago, one of my team members pointed out to me, she said, Rich, have you noticed that about 3 years in a row now, around about October, sorry, the dog's starting to make some noise.
Oh, it's okay.
Around about October, you hire a business consultant and you fire them in November. And as soon as she said it, I was like, oh my God, I know I'd done it 3 years in a row. And I realized what happens around about October, I'm either thinking, oh my God, we haven't hit our numbers for this year. How are we going to do it? I need an expert to help me, to save me. Or we have hit our numbers, we're having a really great year, and I'm already thinking, oh my God, how am I going to do even better next year? I need an expert, someone to come and help me, someone to come and save me. And the reason I always fired them is they were trying to teach me their way to be successful. And I got the distinction. The moment she said that, it's like I'm climbing a mountain. And ahead of me, there's pristine snow. So no one's ever climbed this mountain before because it's my mountain. And to hire an expert at climbing that mountain or that mountain isn't going to help me.
Wow.
I'm not afraid to hire experts and work with experts. But for how I'm going to be successful, I have to find my own way.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. I love it. That's a beautiful analogy, and that's perfect. Man, you should have been on the cover of my book, Rebel. I do quote you in the book. I got to send you a copy when it comes out. Your best 3 years framework that you briefly mentioned, even on this episode, has been transformative. And so it's something that I take people through, and I give you credit in the book for that concept. But I love how you think. I love how you're giving people permission to do it their own way. I know I have a million other things I want to ask you. One final question I ask every guest on the show, very simple. It can go in any direction you want to go. It's something I call the golden rule segment. It's just a simple question. You've got beautiful kids. If they forgot everything you and your wife taught them, except for one piece of advice or wisdom that they would carry with them for the rest of their lives, what would you want that to be?
The way I often answer this, I imagine a graveyard. If I have a gravestone, I'd want something written on the back of my gravestone. Because nothing's written on the back of a gravestone, so if you're walking through a graveyard, that's going to stand out. Prime real estate, prime advertising.
Of course you would say that.
And
right.
my words would say, you're more powerful than you know. And that's the concept that I'm teaching every entrepreneur I work with, every coach I work with. You are more powerful than you know.
I love it. Rich, thank you so much. Everybody go to richlitvin.com. Find the button so you can sign up for his email list. read his articles. Get his book, The Prosperous Coach. It is a bestseller for a reason. It's one that was recommended to me years ago, and I recommend it to everybody when I get a chance. I know he's cooking up a new book too. We'll have to have you on the show when that comes out soon. But Rich, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for showing up in the world the way you do, and having your distinctions and your points of view, and for being so generous today.
Thanks, Graham. It's been an honor.